Hello and welcome to another Home and Mission podcast. I've got a really good friend of mine who I've known for many, many years, and he's also a veteran. And today we are just going to shoot the breeze, have a cup of coffee, and talk about the transition of going from in the services to going into Civvy Street, on all things around that and what we do for a living. So, Dan Turner, introduce yourself please, buddy.
Yeah, so my name's Dan Turner, ex-Army. I got out 2017. And then on ex-REME, so Royal Electrical Mechanical Engineers. Spent 4 years as a VM, did Herrick, so that's Afghan for people that don't know that. Did that, come back, did my PTI course, went to Canada, realised I hated spannering still, so then I went PTI and I worked in training depots for the best part of 5-6 years.
Yeah, because I remember, so we met, I was working at Marchwood, wasn't I?
Yeah.
And I was working with Michelle Kitson in the physio department. And I remember he was leaving at that point.
Yeah, so I was really lucky. So I went to a when I passed BTI course, I went back to a battalion gym and I was at 6 Bat. And then from there I got selected to go train recruits in Borden, which was like a phase 2 depot at the time. It's shut down now. Then that got moved from there and it got moved to Lynham, and then I got extended and I went to Lynham. And then, you know, when you hit a wall and you're just like, oh. And at the time I was playing rugby a lot and I was ecstatic 60% of the time, but hated my job 40% of the time. I wasn't married at the time, so I thought I either take the leap now and then otherwise I'm never going to do it. And I did. And luckily I managed to find a civil service role where you were working.
Yeah.
And I remember I met you out in Portsmouth.
Yeah.
Just by chance. I remember you saying about it. And then I remember when I was going through the selection process for that.
Yeah.
I
had a whisper.
Yeah, he had a whisper for me. Some might say you might have had a key part in getting me the job. So thank you very much for that. But I ended up getting the job there, and I'm really lucky. I managed to get exactly the same job I had in the Army. I got all the stuff that I love about the Army. I've got a beard and I don't wear a rig. It's good. And then obviously I've got my own ventures on the side as well.
So ventures. Let's talk about. So you run a really successful boot camp locally.
Yeah.
And obviously we've been talking about mental health, about our clients, about our members, and what's going on behind the eyes, and what could be possibly going on for people. And do you know what? I really enjoyed the story that he was telling me earlier on. Do you want to tell the guys? So Dan runs a boot camp local to Portsmouth in Gosport. It's called Boot Camp UK. Tell us all about that and make sure you tell me that story.
Yeah, so Boot Camp UK, when I got out, when I was at Borden, I met a guy called Gaz Kennedy and I started working in Basingstoke for an outdoor fitness provider. I won't mention the name. Unfortunately, that didn't work out for whatever reason. We then went off on our own when that one fell apart, and we started our own brand there. And then obviously when I moved to Lynham, my military rugby career, I was so busy with that, and I was laser focused on that, as you can imagine, because you was there as well. So I just left it, and I always kept it on the back burner, and I thought, I've got that, because that's something I can really, really fall back on, and that's definitely something I got in my arsenal. So when I got out, it was the first thing I wanted to do, and I set up independently, and then I kept getting headhunted by a guy called Jace De Silva that I know, who was ex-PT Corps, who just bought this brand called Parafit out, and it's called Parafit because it used to be an older shop where old Browning Barracks used to be.
Yeah.
I can't remember who started it, but he bought it off a guy. And then he changed the name to Boot Camp UK.
Good branding.
Because Parafit was called Parafit because where it was in old Browning Barracks is where the parachute regiment used to do their basic training, and that's why it was called that.
Right.
Anyway, so then he changed the brand into Boot Camp UK, and he was like, "Look, come on board." And at the time, you know what it's like. I was so proud. No, I can do it on my own. I didn't understand the power of branding at the time. 6-7 months, about a year later, my mate Gaz Kennedy had been working for him for a time, the guy I first started the boot camps with, and I will always listen to everything he's got to say in that respect because he's subject matter expert, and I respect his opinion massively. And he said to me, look, mate, you need to come on board. And then in the end, I was really lucky. They twisted my arm and gave me the franchise for free. And then said, look, we know it's going to be successful, take it. So I sucked it up and I went, yeah, all right then, no worries, I'll do it. Still a bit dubious.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I wish I'd done it This is one of them Captain Hindsight things. I wish I'd done it 12 months before. It's one of my biggest regrets not doing it straight away. And since then, I run Bootcamp UK Gosport. We've got parks round here, Waterlooville, Portsmouth, Eastleigh, Winchester, Chichester, Petersfield, Bognor, Worthing. The furthest up the country we've gone now is my mate John. He just used to run Sittingbourne. He's just opened Wirral.
Oh, wow.
So it's slowly creeping up.
Yeah, that's class.
And every year we just get more interest. And it's just fantastic. And, we get clients from all walks of life. Which is why I mentioned the story what I said about earlier when you had Lee Drinkwater on here, the Royal Marines RSM.
Yeah.
Cracking. I love watching that, by the way. That was a brilliant podcast.
Oh, mate, he's a geezer.
Yeah. Very, commands a lot of respect.
Yeah, without even opening his mouth.
Without even saying anything, just sitting there. Yeah, so big up to him. But when he said something that really resonated with me, and it was when he was speaking about resilience, and he gave the example of the single mum.
Yeah.
Or he said, people are resilient in different ways, not so much in the military, but just day to day, where they're running a household, sorting kids out. Yeah. Maybe they're a single parent, maybe they've got pets. And I've got clients that I've got a guy whose wife is disabled and he's a full-time carer. He comes down, he's massively overweight, can't run, but he comes down to every single class and just gets on with it. And finds the time and gets it in. Yeah. I've got another girl called Kerry. I call her family the Von Trapp family because every time I see her, I swear they got another child, and then they've got more animals than Marwell Zoo. I mean, I think she's training a Labrador to be a guide dog at the minute. She goes every challenge, every class she can. Manages to juggle all the kids. Her husband's an accountant, so he's full on with work. Yeah. And she just does everything. She's Superwoman. Yeah. You get that. And it's like I said to you, I find, and a lot of people might agree with this, if I'm at work and I'm in my office and the door's shut and I'm quiet, I'm so relaxed. It's weird. I feel like you get to a certain point when you've got multiple things going on that when you're actually at work and you're in your office, that's when you're most relaxed. And as soon as I walk through my front door, there's a perpetual cycle of unloading and loading the dishwasher. Laundry needs turning over. The dogs need walking. The dogs need feeding. Doing stuff around the house. Like what you were doing when I turned up, smashing the kitchen out. Yeah. I don't care what anyone says. You can eat takeaways every day. You will be tidying your kitchen. Yeah. There's always something to do. And I always think to myself, when I'm doing that and I'm stressed out with it, and I think, stop dripping down because, there's people that are doing this on their own with kids. I haven't even got kids yet. And I think to myself, fair play. So that really resonated with me.
That's where I think where Drinky was talking about that. So he's going, someone's resilience is completely different. So I remember him saying to me, about there was 3 lads that were ex-military that were just sat in the rain with their jackets on, having a wet, happy as Larry. Yeah. But then there was a lady that was trying to get her son ready and she was already stressed. So to put any more stress on her through exercise or any more stimulus would probably be pushing her right to a limit. Yeah. Whereas these 3 lads have rocked up, probably got no other responsibility other than to come and exercise and get in the jogging. Yeah. And I thought that was a really good way to put things. But just picking up on what you're saying though, Dan, and this is what I was talking about to one of my best friends, Lee, this morning. I was saying, I'm noticing at the minute, because I'm plate spinning, as I usually am. And I said to him this morning, I said, I'm starting to really notice even more so than ever that when so if I wake up in the morning, I'm thinking, right, I've got to do this. And I kind of snowball myself a little bit. And once I have my session, totally different mindset. And going back to what you're saying about your 2 clients there, one's got disabled partner, full on time carer, coming, even though he's a bit out of shape. And then you've got the Von Trapp family. Are they coming for exercise or are they coming for their daily dose?
Oh, it's a daily dose thing, 100%. And
Innit?
people like me and you and anyone else who works in the fitness industry, I mean, it's our bread and butter and it's been part of your life. To me, I always say, like, fitness for me is like brushing your teeth. If I haven't brushed my teeth in 4 days, I know that I haven't brushed my teeth in 4 days. Yeah. It's the same with fitness. If I don't go to the gym for a few days, I get really, my wife will tell you, I get so aggy. And I'm a horrible person to be around. When we got married in Cyprus,
I can't imagine that, Dan.
Oh, mate, when we got married in Cyprus, it was an all-inclusive resort, and I said on the way out there, I went, you know what? I'm just going to go pin out here, and I'm going to do any fizz for 10 days. I'm going to do one, and I whacked it in. And when I got home, I just felt like a bin bag full of yogurt, and it took me so long to get back on the horse again and get back to where I wanted to be. That I've said to myself, I'm never ever doing that again as long as I live.
Yeah.
But yeah, like. Sorry, I just gone off a tangent there, but with the guys that are coming on their daily dose, you get that all the time, and you know, we take it for granted. We get to do it. It's part of your job.
Yeah. It's
just a given. It's something that's just part of your day-to-day routine, whereas them it's different. It's an escape. Like, we've got different ways of escaping, you know, getting our fix. But, you know, you probably have the same with the gym. It's the classes and what you offer as a product is 60% of what you do. Yeah. The 40% is like the community. Yeah. Them catching up with friends. Yeah. You know, and they get to go there and they're not dad or mum or your carer or Mr. So and so or you know whatever. They're just another person. They're Gary. They're Kerry. But they're you know that's Kerry at boot camp. Yeah. She's the one who does all the challenges. You know that's Gary. He digs out even though he can't run. You know they just get to be just someone else for an hour and forget about everything else. Yeah. Which is one of the most important things.
I think so, Dan. I think so. I mean, it's even this morning when I was finishing this morning, the two of the lads that were there, they was just having a dit on. And I'd had a shower and everything. So you're talking about a good 20 minutes now. And I still, before I left, they were still there. To the point where I went to, lads, there's some coffee upstairs. Yeah. And we've got a cafetiere. Help yourselves. And they started trotting up.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's quality.
So it is, we forget that we provide a service beyond exercise. And I think certainly with the boot camps. So what I wanted to talk about as well today is spinning off from the boot camp is your
BootFest.
Yeah. So I really want to talk about that because I know it's supporting combat stress as well, which is obviously massive support of the veteran community. Yeah. Do you want to elaborate on that for us, Dan?
So because Boot Camp UK is part of the Armed Forces Covenant.
Is it really? I didn't know that.
So we're on board with that, which if you don't know what that is, I encourage you to check that out because they're really good, especially if you're leaving. Anyone that's leaving and they need a bit of support, and it's scary, isn't it? It's getting out of the military is scary. Yeah. They'll support you. So Armed Forces Covenant, get onto them. There's lots of support, like family support, financial support, like they can help you into a career. But Combat Stress is a charity that helps people with PTSD and other mental health disorders while they're still serving and ex-serving as well.
I didn't know that.
And they had their government funding cut like 5-6 years ago. So they rely heavily on fundraising.
Really?
Oh yeah. So and you know, my friend Gaz, who I mentioned earlier, he was with the Irish Guards in Afghan, and he got the Queen's Commendation for bravery. I mean, he's a VM, but he was on patrol and stuff, and he got Queen's Commendation for bravery in a firefight. And he came back with really bad PTSD. And he won't mind me saying this, combat stress saved his life. Wow. So to me, it's something that's so close to my heart. Yeah. And also as well, because of what we do and the type of fitness we offer, we get veterans. I mean, I've got so many ex-Matlows, ex-Army. I've got a guy who's just started recently called Piers, lost his leg on Telic, and he's in a mortar strike, and he's smashing it out. Class. He just hasn't lost his military humour. Yeah. He can't, you know, he hasn't lost it at all, and he's been out years now. So, you know, combat stress helped people like him, and what we did was, in 2020, when you couldn't do things inside, because we always do social events and things, me and my mate Pete, who runs the fair in Waterlooville and that, he came to me, and it was his idea originally, and he said, you know, come on, we need to do something outside, and then we just started spitballing, and then he was like, oh, just off the cuff, he went, we should do a music festival, and I just went, that ain't beyond the realms of possibility. Like, we could probably pull that off. Anyway, so we sat down, we started planning it. We almost put it on paper, we're like, bloody hell, like, we could actually do this.
Yeah.
So anyway, we did the first one. We had to jump through so many hoops. There was a lot of red tape because obviously the situation we were in at the time in 2020. Yeah. Managed to pull it off with like the council approval and everything. Following year, just built on it. Third year, we moved it to a new location. No, sorry, same location. Then we just built on it again. And then last year, there was a festival used to be called Jerk Jam. It's a place in Houndhill. So just want to throw it. We moved to there. A guy called Russell owns the place, and he's an absolute diamond. Just lets me go mad. You've never met anyone who's just so laid back in your life. Anyway, so we moved to there, and we just attracted more sponsors. And what it is it's a live music event, mainly for our clients, but for their friends as well to come along and the local community. And we've got like 3 live bands that play every year, maybe more than that. We've got a rodeo ball, we've got food vendors, and it's a way of us like supporting local businesses as well. Yeah. And it's all proceeds, all profits go to combat stress. It used to be a family event, but what we found is that the stuff that you buy for the kids, like inflatable obstacles and stuff like that, is really expensive. Right. And we wasn't getting, because people either do 2 things. They either come in the daytime with their kids and then go, or they don't come in the daytime and don't bring their kids. So last year we tried it with just adults and it worked a lot better and we raised a lot more for the charity. But what we did so the kids don't miss out is there's Tree of Hope Foundation, the kids charity. Right. Reese Bingham's son Rudy, the rooting for Rudy. For Rudy, I just moved everything that I had for the kids at BootFest and did an event at the Carisbrooke Arms pub in Gosport. So I put wrestling, face painting, bouncy castle, barbecue, big raffle, live music, and I just moved all of that to a separate day. So that's like everything the kids had at BootFest, they don't miss out now. So that's a separate. So that's another thing that I run, but we can talk about that one at a different time. But yeah, so BootFest, that's just for adults, and it's all profits for combat stress. Last year we done 2,025. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. But like anything, when you start growing, you start attracting more sponsors. And we had JLR Services last year as our main sponsor, which is like a property maintenance firm that sorted out all the fencing, really stepped it up a gear. Yeah. They did all the stuff like the fencing, the bins, the skips, the toilets, like all the overheads. So it's class. They're going to support it this year. And then we've got a lad called Reece Drew, who's got a groundworks firm. He's come on board this year and he wants to cover even more stuff. That's brilliant. So if anyone's watching and wants to get involved in it, and you think it's something you want to support, then obviously we're starting to get sponsors now. It starts from as little as greens. Yeah, that's it. Right. We're not a typical podcast where we've got sponsorships and stuff. It's literally, like I've always said, it's just 2 geezers that are going to talk. Maybe 3 geezers if we manage to get anybody else on here. But anyways, we were chatting away, and because I'm such a rookie, something happened, and we was 18 minutes into our conversation, but we was talking about BootFest, and was talking about sponsorship. So we'll take off from here. Yeah. Sorry, team, but I am a tech monk, so... Anyways, hey, it's a learning process. It's a learning process, yeah. I mean, this is my. And it wouldn't be. It would if it runs smoothly with me and you. It wouldn't have been. That would have been terrible. I would have go put Euro Millions on. Yeah, fair. Because sponsorship for BootFest. Then, so I think it was leading off. We were talking about if anyone wants to get involved. Talking about sponsorship before JLR Services. They come on board as a main sponsor. It starts off as little. If you want to sponsor the event, interior fencing. We've got that Harris fencing. Yeah. You see on building sites. If you want to sponsor the event, starts off at £100. For that, you get a 2 metre by 1 metre banner on the fence. That goes up when we're building the site, and that's on display for the whole time. So if there's anyone watching this that wants to get involved with it, any veterans that have got businesses, I mean, I know you said that Renegades get stuck definitely, in. And like I said to you as well, the Armed Forces Covenant for you to get stuck into, and I encourage anyone to do that. So it's a really admirable position to be in when you can support something like that. So I'm open. Like, the idea is as we get bigger sponsors, the more money we raise for the charity. Yeah. Because when you can cover overheads, more money goes to combat stress.
Yes.
And I think I said before we lost the feed. It was
it was on about Victorious, weren't we? So
Victorious,
Victorious started. I don't know if many people have heard of Victorious. It's becoming a very popular festival in Portsmouth. It's the highlight in my opinion, it's the highlight of the year for Portsmouth now. Some great acts. It's become a real family-orientated festival for us. We have family come down. But it basically started in the dockyard in Nelson, which is not far from my house here. And it's grown. It's massive now. It covers the whole of Southsea. Now, I don't know if you've been to Portsmouth, but Southsea is massive. The Common's massive, and it covers the whole Common now. But I was just saying, like, for the BootFest, Dan's dream is to get somewhere where it grows to a position where...
Yeah, because that's one thing I love about Victorious is the family aspect of it. And like we was saying before about the overheads for the kids, like I want it to be a family event again. And I've got this vision of it being like Victorious started and being in the dockyard and being able to bring on the Royal Navy Benevolent Fund, get the Veterans Foundation involved so the money gets split 3 ways as opposed to just to combat stress and just helping everybody out.
Yeah.
So if there's anyone out there in the realms of social media that I can have a meeting with to make that happen, I'm all ears and I'm more than happy to have a sit down.
It's funny because I think, so one of my real dear friends, Claire Peppiat, she's one of the head ladies at Royal British Legion. And we talk all the time about how we make the Royal British Legion more relevant, because if you ask a lot of young people these days, they associate it with World War I, World War II veterans. And now we're coming to a place in our lives now where there's not going to be many of those about. Certainly World War I, World War II, we're pushing our luck. And it's like, well, is the RBL still relevant? And I 100% say yes. And when I was speaking with Drinky, actually, we was talking about this same thing, and it's like, how do these charities, so how does combat stress, how does Royal British Legion stay relevant? And if you think about it now, festivals are becoming a real key part of culture.
Big time.
Yeah.
And I think the nightclub scene, unfortunately, where is it?
Yeah.
Everyone I know now, I think I listened to the Eventful Lives podcast with that Dodge Woodall, who started Bournemouth Sevens. And he said a statistic the other day that blew my mind. He said there used to be 1,700 nightclubs before everything that happened in 2020. Now there's 600. And it's slowly dropping. And whether that's cost of living crisis, fitness is because of social media is so popular.
Yeah.
I think, there was another statistic, I think something like 18 to 25 year olds, something like 25% of them don't drink now. Which for me, when I was 18, that was a rite of passage. It was like, as soon as you was 18, up straight in, I
was even younger than that. I mean, I remember my dad dragging me out of
like
clubs.
14, 15.
Yeah,
exactly,
And I could barely grow whisker. Yeah, I was able to get in some of the clubs in Hull. And my dad wet the doors.
Yeah.
So I'd often feel his hand grip the back of my neck to drag me out.
I remember when I was at school, I think the World Cup was on at the time. I used to come out of school uniform and go down the pub and sit in maths hungover the next day. But so the festival thing, like just going back to BootFest, if they can get involved with it, we can do it like that. We can bring more charities involved. It gives them a bigger platform, projects them out. And also that family element is something that I really want to have, because you take your girls to Victorious.
Yeah.
I went to Victorious this year with our friend Tony and our little girl Lennon, who's like, I love her like she's my own.
Yeah.
And I cut about with her on my shoulders the whole weekend. And it's such a good thing. And if you've not been to Victorious before, go.
Yeah, definitely.
It's amazing.
Even if you're not in this town, I mean, we had lads from...
It's putting Portsmouth on the map.
Yeah, definitely. But I'll tell you what we was talking about as well, was what combat stress are about. So we've got a mutual friend that's about to leave the military. Now, for those that have left the military, could transition into Civvy Street, it comes with its problems and its struggles. Now, leaving the military medically, certainly, I think, from a mental health point of view, how daunting would that be? And how does combat stress help?
Yeah, so our friend that we're talking about there, he's a very unique example of someone who's having to leave and he's still dealing with something, which, I don't wish that on anyone. That must be really stressful. I was saying before, coming from a position where I can't sit there and pretend that, it was difficult and it was a bit stressful for me, but I can't sit there and say that it was massively, massively life altering because I went into a military environment.
Yeah.
I was quite lucky, but with people like our friend who's leaving, anyone who's listening to this who's struggling and wants to get signposted, combat stress is there, and it's really easy to seek assistance and help from them.
Yeah.
And the Armed Forces Covenant as well. If you go on combatstress.org.uk, click on there, and straight away the first page that comes up is helpline, email. I think there's a live chat option on there.
Yeah.
The Armed Forces Covenant, you go on there and there's a contact us, and then it's, are you seeking help with this?
Yeah.
And it tells you financial, mental support,
that's good,
family support, jobs, career support. There's so much out there, and and it's just it's a problem shares, a problem halved, and if you can.
I think so.
You can seek assistance for something, especially if you're struggling, just don't suffer in silence is what I'd say.
Yeah, I found it quite interesting though that these charities that are doing such good work, like you were saying earlier as well, it gets the funding cut. So it's it becomes responsibility of the community then, isn't it? So veterans or veterans' families, I think it's so important that we do support these charities, because otherwise, people like our friend, I think are really going to struggle with all that sort of support around. Yeah,
big time. And it's. I feel like you, as a veteran or someone in our position, who's got a platform, you've got a wide audience that you can preach to.
Yeah,
you're sort of obligated.
Yeah.
There's a guy called Craig Harrison. He's ex-sniper. He used to hold the world record for the longest sniper kill. I've watched a couple of podcasts of him, and he brought up this point. It's horrible, really. It's upsetting. He showed a picture of Parliament with 5-6 people in there, and then another picture of Parliament rammed, standing room only to the rafters. Couldn't fit any more people in there. One that was rammed was MP's wages, and then the one that was empty was suicide in veterans.
Really?
And that hit me when I heard him say that, and I'm just like, we've got to do something. It's and as hard as it is running stuff and running BootFest, and it runs me into the ground every year, don't get me wrong, it runs me into the ground. And Sammy, my wife, who I mentioned before, I feel sorry for her because she's like an afterthought. I'm just laser focused with it, and then I come up for air when it's done. But when you stand there, you see what you've built, you see everyone together, and then you get to hand that check over to combat stress. For thousands. It's so worth it.
Yeah, rewarding, isn't it?
So, and I'll get Dan to get the ticket link out to everyone. I invite everyone. It's not just for people who Bootcamp UK. I'd love.
No. I will definitely. I'll definitely put it out to our community in the Renegades, and we'll put it out to the whole man mission as well, 100%. And people that are in and around this area, or people that wanted to travel because they want to support that combat stress and BootFest and what it's all about. I think, so going back to what you're saying, so some statistics around suicide in the military, what I found quite interesting, suicide in the military isn't actually a big problem. So there's not actually a lot of suicides that happen whilst serving.
It's always after.
It's after, but even after. So I was reading this article actually from, I think it was Drinky that shared it with me. It's not so much that this suicide is a problem, it's the mental health. So in comparison to the rest of the population, if you're ex-military, you actually are less likely. And the reason being is because military do tend to build more of a resilience. Even though they might be struggling with the mental health, they have more of a resilience. Therefore, they were less likely to to end their lives. Now, there are circumstances where, ex-service people do take their lives. I mean, Drinky and Tom, who set up RV1 down in Exmouth, they set that up purposely because they had a couple of friends that had taken their own lives.
Yeah.
But in statistics wise, it's not as prevalent as the normal population. That said, mental health is still a major issue for ex-service personnel that have been in combat, because obviously they do see a lot, but they do build a resilience.
Yeah, big time.
And I found that really interesting because of our perception of, the civilian world looking at the military and the veteran community. We are often perceived that we all suffer with some sort of combat stress.
No, yeah.
But it's not actually always the case. But when it does happen, it seems to be really significant, and it seems to be really, it becomes like a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I've got PTSD from Afghanistan, because I haven't. I was a vehicle mechanic. I went out on some vehicle patrols, got shot at a couple of times. The first time I got shot, I didn't even know what was going on. And then they've got people on the flip side. Like my mate Richie Ness, he's a Marine.
Yeah, Richie,
My mate Louis Greenstave was attached to 2 Para and was out on patrol. And he's seen a lot of stuff, and I do it for people like that because I've got friends, and I've got my mate Gaz, who I spoke about before, and I feel like it's your duty.
Yeah.
To do that, it's
and raise awareness.
And raise awareness of it. Me and you, like PTIs. I mean, you're sure you agree. Majority of our career we spent as glorified PE teachers and sportsmen. So I feel like because I had such a cushy role. In my last 4 years, especially, I feel like I want to give something back, and that's why I do what I do with BootFest.
I think the most significant. I mean, my PTI career, like I was saying to you earlier, I lived in Glasgow for a year in a luxury apartment, and that was supposed to be my sea draft.
Yeah.
Whereas normal PTI,
HMS Diamond, that was being built. Yeah,
HMS Diamond up in Glasgow. But I think the most significant thing that ever happened to me when I was in the military was on HMS Portland, and we were doing some trials on the coast off the coast of Plymouth and Weymouth. And we lost our helo, and the 4 guys that were in the helo, they lost their lives. But I remember it being it was a very dark period, certainly for the ship. But I wasn't close to the lads, and it was an event that it was just. I think it was just weird. I didn't know how to respond to that.
It makes it real. I mean, when you see it on the TV, you're disconnected.
Yeah.
I was lucky when I was there. I spent a lot of time in Camp Bastion because I was on a thing called Massive, which is like these massive trucks. But I was lucky in the sense that I got to go because there was massive variants everywhere, and I was a vehicle mechanic on there. I was really lucky. I got to see a lot of the country. I think one of the only places I didn't go was Sangin when I was. Right. I got to bounce around. I got to see the way that other people were living and stuff. And I was very, very fortunate in my position when I was there. The thing that really hit me wasn't. We had to go to lots of vigils for guys that got killed on the ground, which is awful. But that hit me. But what really hit me the most, and what you don't know, is how many people lose limbs out there.
Yeah.
Every day you get what's called an AO brief, which is an aerial operations brief, where your platoon command stands up and gives you what's been going on in different areas. And I'm not exaggerating, mate. Every single day it'd read out like 2 Para were contacted by so-and-so. IED strike resulted in 2 friendly Cat A casualties. And the Cat A casualty, that's a limb gone. Oh. That was every day. Like from different units. And you just think to yourself, and that's another thing in my head, I'm like, combat stress, because they help the veterans and like, provide support for them. And I'm like, I need to do something. And again, going back, that's why we do what we do. And I think that's why it's so important for people to get involved with. Yeah.
Well, when we started the Hold My Mission, it did. At one point, I was thinking, right, we're going to go veteran men only, but I couldn't because there were so many people that I've come across, civilians, that I recognised needed just as much help. And although I'll probably always attract veteran men because obviously I'm a veteran man myself, and that will be one of the biggest sort of audiences that I'll probably resonate with more. But I just thought it was a point where I went, let's say men, not veteran men, and just see what happens. But I think at the minute, because there's so much going on with this transition, and I think it's because of my age, if I'm honest, Dan.
Yeah.
Because I'm at a transition. So if I had stayed in, I would have been pensionable now. So all the lads that I knocked about with are all leaving.
And that's scary to think of your peer group and now you've come on that far. I mean, I've got guys that are in my peer group, which I'm not going to mention some of the stuff we used to get up to. They're sergeant majors now.
Yeah.
And it's like...
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But it's like they're all leaving the military, and I've watched some of them really struggle. Because they've done, I only did 12 years, but they've done 22 years. And it's like, it's that, I said, one lad at the minute stands out to me more than anyone else because he's recently just reached out to me. I hope we do some work together. I won't say his name. But he was talking about when he went and gave his ID card in. So bear in mind, he's leaving as a chief in the military, in the Navy. And he's just given his ID card and they've just given it and then that was it. And I know...
I think I've seen him comment on something. I think I read that story.
Yeah, well, and then I think... So after that, I think someone reached out to me then and said, oh, actually, there is now a ceremony. But that's not made public. I mean, he didn't know about that.
No.
So I think, but then again, awareness and people getting out there and talking about stuff so people become more aware of actually what's going on. And because, he might not want that ceremony. He might go, but actually, I wanted a little bit more than my card getting cut, but I don't want a ceremony, something in between maybe. But it's a very strange transition, I think, because I think I can't speak for civilians, obviously, but going from one job to another, I'm guessing you accept that. But whereas service life, where you've given so much of your life.
Yeah.
Because it's not a job, is it?
It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle.
It's a complete lifestyle adjustment. And like I said, I can't speak from experience because mine wasn't that different. I've moved straight back into a military environment. We spoke about it before. The thing I struggled with the most when I left, and this is nothing to my wife, was being at home all the time.
Yeah.
You lose your solitude. At the end of the working day when you're away 5 days a week, you go back to your room and you shut the door, you're on your own, peace, nothing, that's one of the things.
I miss that. I definitely miss that.
Especially with the kids, and I've got 2 bulldogs that are 5 times worse than children. And that's something I really struggle. I think that's something that my wife struggled with as well, was having me around all the time.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot, when people leave. It's like we were talking about, I take trainees through now for 7-3 Squadron, banging squadron to work for, absolutely love it, never worked in a place where I've got...
Marchwood.
Yeah, in Marchwood. Basically, I take the seafaring troops of the Army through their Phase 2 training on their unit PTI and do all the AT and stuff for the squadron. But great squadron to work for. But I have young lads and ladies coming through and I say to them, while your only responsibility is being told where to be, what time, and what to wear, you need to milk it for as much as you can, because when you start getting responsibilities, because we were talking about earlier on today, because of the recruitment level numbers, because of the numbers in the Army and the Navy and the forces as a whole, back when we were in, sergeants, POs, that was a bit of a tabs out job. Now you're doing 3-4 blokes jobs now because of the manning issue. Which now it's because everyone's got an abundance of information in their pocket and in the palm of their hand. You can see what people in the armed forces get paid. Yeah. And when you see a sergeant major on so and so, and then you've got Joe Bloggs works in recruitment mid-20s, and he's on more. People know that, and I think that's the thing that the MOD are struggling with at the minute is that recruitment, because
we said them with retention as well. So
retention,
keeping them in, because I think with the way culture is in society now, it's not so much about joining for the career. It's like joining for a job and experience.
Life experience, yeah.
Yeah, and then possibly going outside. I mean, I know Drinky joined late. He was, so the lad that we had on previously on one of the podcasts, he joined at 29. So he'd done it the opposite way around.
That's late. That's really.
He had to actually have a letter written. At the time when he joined at 29, the cut-off was 27.
Yeah.
So he had to actually have special permission for him to join. I think it's 33 now, the Royal Marines. Yeah, so it was quite.
I'll tell you what, fair play to the bloke. 29 years old, going through that.
Yeah, so he's becoming pensionable now.
Yeah.
Because he's done his time, but he joined at 29 and it's
that's good.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine putting my body through that.
No, and it's I say this all the time. I don't want to wish conflict on anybody, and I don't want to wish for us to go into another conflict, but conflict is so good for recruitment.
It is in the military,
For me,
yeah.
I joined the army knowing I was going to go to Afghanistan, because that's what was going on at the time. People in the generation before me joined because of Iraq.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the first or second Gulf War, you know. There's not really much going on at the moment, and you know, like we were saying, like if you see someone at the top end earning whatever X amount, and then you see your mucker G earning X amount, but he's in a cushy office role, not sat in a woodblock with cam cream on, eating out of a tin, what one are you going to go for?
Yeah.
Especially this generation now. I'm not saying that all of them are soft. But definitely got a lot more sheltered as opposed to, like, you know.
Well, it's different experiences, isn't it?
It's
different exposure. It's different in different generations. Again, going back to what was talking about before with Drake, he was saying, like, the old saying, or not like when it was my day. He's got a video from the 40s, I think he was saying, of people saying,
"Oh yeah,
not like it was in my day," and each generation, obviously, we're building a community and a society where it becomes more comfortable, safer for people to live. With safe becomes, you know, if we make things more safe, that means that resilience is going to reduce.
Yeah, because you don't need to.
Because you don't need to be, you know, you don't need to be in your fight, flight, or freeze mechanism. And I think, I tell you who talked about that really well. He said Danny Jono's brother, that Marvin Johnson. Talks about that all the time. And I think it's really interesting to listen to people talk when they talk about, they go, "Oh, and back in the day when we was getting chased by saber-toothed tigers and stuff like that," because actually, the mechanisms in our brain that are primitive, maybe they are laid dormant in the sense of we're not actually reacting to our environment anymore, where it's like scary. But what I would say is our resilience is probably reduced to a point where those fight, flight, or freeze mechanisms in our primitive brains are more likely to be triggered by lesser stimuluses in the environment.
Yeah, big time. And then it's another reason as well, and I use it all the time as an example. It's the reason why a lot of people are overweight now, is because back in the day, if you was overweight and you couldn't hunt, you were too heavy, or you couldn't evade predators, you're dead. Where, you know, and that's why when you look at tribes people that still live in that primitive world, there's not a single obese person amongst them. You know, it's just we are comfortable. We're so comfortable, and I sometimes think that this generation and my generation as well, we have got it so easy in Western society that we just make up problems because we're bored, because we're out of boredom. But that's, you could go into, there's a whole other conversation you can go in there. Well, that's again, no, and it's like, because we're becoming so aware with social media, with smartphones and stuff, you know, we're becoming a culture where, like, we're so savvy of, like, the minor problems. But because we've got no really high level problems anymore. But I mean, I don't want to get into politics and religion at the minute, but only across the water you've got war. And whether we end up getting involved in that or not, I probably won't. But like, we forget, like, sometimes that there is situations in the world where people's problems are a lot bigger than the minor problems that we always consider in this day. Big time. Yeah, big time. It's just like that old saying, isn't it? And I don't really like it too much. You know, and everyone says, like, "Oh, it could always be worse. There's always someone worse off." when we're talking about some of the stuff that you do at the Whole Man Mission, to me, I don't like that as much as I used to, purely because you're doing really well at Renegade's gym, right? I walked in here, right, and you said, "Oh, gym's buzzing at the minute, like it's absolutely flying."
Yeah.
I don't go to you, "Well, I won't get too chuffed for yourself, mate, because Gold's Gym in California is probably doing a lot better than you are." Do you know what I mean? It's the same thing, like when you flip it. Do you know? Does that make sense? So I think you shouldn't.
I'll smash Gold.
What's that?
I'll smash them.
Smash them. But yeah, I think it's important when someone's been on that. You need to, because when someone is down like that and they're feeling down, and you say, "Oh, it could always be worse," you're sort of just discrediting, like you don't deserve to feel the way you're feeling.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing as well, why people just haven't been speaking. But now, for the work that you're doing and everything, I think it's brilliant.
Validation. That's the key word for me at the minute. So like I keep my wife said it's my favourite word at the minute, but it's about validating someone's feelings. So we're doing it with Poppy at the minute. So rather than just go, she goes, "Oh, she's got this blood problem." In my mind, I'm going, "That's not really a problem." But I don't say that because I'm not validating.
Yeah.
So I validate our problems first, and we then discuss, and then we say, "Well, how are we going to overcome this?" And I think that's with some of the stuff that we're doing in the Whole Man Mission with lads, is don't just go, right, you can't just dismiss. If we're asking people to talk, right, because as a society, we're asking more blokes to talk, then we need to listen. So we have to listen and validate that it's completely normal to feel the way they are feeling about their situation. If it is. And then we dress back from there and say, well, step by step, how are we going to get through this? And I think that validation is definitely something that we need to be more aware of when it comes to, certainly for men's mental health. Because if you're asking a geezer that's, big, tough geezer that really sort of struggles to then open up, but then you go, "Oh, yeah, but you're trying to solve I bet you'll do this as well, Dan, because I do this all the time. When your wife is talking to you and she's giving you her problems and you're just going, right.
I always say it's the monkey with the symbols.
Yeah. And you're going like this. You're going, right, I can solve this problem by just doing an insane, solving the problem. But they don't want you to solve the problem.
No, they just want you to listen. And that's something I struggled with so much, because Sammy's probably the first proper relationship I've been in.
Yeah.
And I never understood that. And we're blokes, problem solver. You need to do this, and they don't like that. They just want you to listen, don't they? That's one of the biggest life lessons.
But what I've learned as well, though, Dan, that's sometimes blokes as well, though. Blokes just don't, they probably know roughly how they're going to get out of it, but they just need to be listened to. And that's where I'm learning more to do that.
Yeah.
I still struggle with my wife, and I don't know whether that's just because you're so close, but like outside of my own relationship, like with the members and the blokes I work with, I'm doing my best to sort of go, right, don't solve the problem, just listen, and then ask the right questions for them to possibly find the answers themselves.
Yeah, man, and the more that you do that for people, the more approachable you become. And I find it as well, like in the fitness industry, and I'm sure every personal trainer and everyone in that industry will agree with me, you're not just a fitness trainer, you end up as a therapist as well. Yeah. And you will find things out which they won't have told anyone else.
I know, mate. I
must have found out now about 9 clients. I found out that they're pregnant before they even told family. Yeah. Because they have to, because of their safety. And I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about being in that position of, I say, authority, in the sense that you're out front and centre. I don't know what it is, what people feel. They're so comfortable telling you things.
Yeah. Well, I listened to a podcast a few years ago, and it was a barber. It was a guy that actually started the process of getting his barbers first aid trained in mental health.
Yeah, like trim training.
Yeah, like trim training. Yeah, and I thought that was really clever. And I think, my personal opinion, I'm not seeing it in the personal training industry. Although I think a lady's just linking me up with a guy that he's just about to start doing it. Because personal trainers, you're spending, if you're doing one-to-one as well, you're doing an hour with somebody, maybe once or twice a week.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes that's longer than I can spend talking to my wife. You know, so people really find, once they've got that rapport with you and they can trust you, they start to open up with all sorts of information.
Oh, big time.
You know, I've had to refer a few clients in the past further on because my scope of practice is not able to
and
manage
just safeguarded.
Yeah, definitely.
You feel like it's your responsibility.
Yeah,
no,
definitely.
It's good to be in that position.
But it's a blessed position, isn't it? It's a privilege, and that's when I put out things about being privileged. I'm not just saying it. I feel privileged because some of the things that we're entrusted with is really needs to be carefully handled.
Yeah.
But Dan, anyways, listen, mate, it's been great to chat, and I know we had our little hiccup in the middle.
Yeah.
But again, we probably picked up on different subjects, and it's been brilliant to have you on board.
Yeah, it has, mate. Don't see each other enough. We should see each other more.
Yeah, definitely, Dan.
And I just want to say as well, you're a natural at this, and I don't know why it's took you so long. You're like Hole's answer to Joe Rogan, mate.